All right, and welcome to the first inaugural National Firescape Association.org review of websites and what you can do to get in and around all the various websites that are out there specific to and only for fire escapes. So what I have up on the board right now is basically the National Firescape Association.org. A lot of people that use this is primarily fire inspectors, building inspectors, because we teach a 6-hour continuing ed course that's approved for additional credits. And so this is a great website to go look, because every time we record something nationwide, we basically would put it here. So we have video and inspections in the past 10 plus years that we've done from Maine to Florida, from Chicago to Texas, and from Seattle to San Diego. So a lot of the videos here. So let me just show you what that looks like. So when you get to the National Firescape Association, click on Seminars, which is on this side over here. And with that, it'll open up, information about what a typical seminar is all about, what needs to be done. But let's click on something as simple as, let's do the first one, San Francisco or Oakland. Actually, click on the Oakland one. That's a good one. Oakland, California. But we've done, Toledo, Ohio, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, New York, Virginia, Texas. We've done it all, okay? So as he sort of goes through a couple, you can see that the seminar, again, will be able to play. A lot of times there's inspectors in the class, and these are fire inspectors. So majority of the states, 40 out of 50 states, you're gonna have fire inspectors writing the violation to you, not the building inspectors. 10 out of the 50 states will be the building inspectors. So IFC 1104 will be the fire department, and the IBC code will be for the building department, okay? And as you can see, it's a seminar. We're starting to teach it now through Zoom classes due to COVID. But basically, it's question and answer. We learn a lot. They learn primarily at these classes not how to inspect fire escapes, but to make sure that the fire escapes are being properly inspected by one of three possible people: structural engineers, and there's good ones and bad ones; architects, good ones and bad ones; and certified fire escape inspectors, and there's good ones and bad ones, okay? So as you can see, you can play. You don't have to register. You don't have to log in or anything. And then by you playing it, it'll go through all that. And a lot of times these classes include a walk around. So at the very end, let's see if this one has it on the end of this one. There's a walk around that I do at their fire towers or such. So it's probably on another video. But a lot of times we'll just go through and be outside. We'll go into a downtown, and we may have a room with 20, 30, 40 inspectors, but only 10 or 15 inspectors will go out with me on the field. So now let's go back out of seminars. And let's take a look at awareness, codes. Let's click on codes for now. So the code is pretty simple. There's only two codes that you're going to be getting a violation on. The International Fire Code, which is the 1104.16.5.1, which is really written by the fire inspector of your city. And it's just recently been adopted as of 2012 that all fire escapes in the US have to be inspected every 5 years. So if you can imagine, prior to that, not all the fire escapes are being inspected because they were mainly being controlled by IBC, but there was no 5-year rule. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So there was no violations coming out as much as they should have been. And that's why you have literally a 25 to 50 year gap in there where fire escapes were never inspected in some of these major cities, okay? And just because the code came out in 2012 doesn't mean your state adopted it. So nationally, the code came out in 2012. The state had to adopt it, usually by 2015, 2018. Then the local city somehow, and in some cases, got involved as to whether or not they adopted the state code or whether they made amendments for the city code. If you have a very large city, they sometimes will hold off on adopting the state code, even though it's a national code. So IBC is the building department, so a lot of codes, as I mentioned before, about 10 states out of the 50 states are still getting a violation from the building code, but they've held on to it for about 100 years, and there was no 5-year rule, and in some cases there still is no 5-year rule under the IBC. The other code we're going to be talking about on here is also the NFPA. If you scroll down a little bit more, you have the NFPA a life safety code. So the authority having jurisdiction shall accept by load test or other evidence of strength. That sort of supports the two codes. And then you also have the OSHA 1910.37 rule, which is basically that if you're going to renovate, repair, or do anything on a building, you must maintain a fire escape certified so that any vendor using it to fix windows, fix the walls, work with brick, standpipe inspections, anything. OSHA 1910.37 requires that all fire escape platforms be certified before you start working on a building, not after. So fire escapes are now first, not last, that you fix on fire escape renovations. On building renovations. So a lot of the categories here on the right side, if you scroll, you can actually click a code. So some cities, you can click and we'll try to have the most local code in that city, but that doesn't always work because sometimes they're going through changes. I've had cities where they have one thing listed on their website, but they're following the national model anyway. So each building inspector, each fire inspector will have his own decision as to which code he wants to follow, and some of them do get a little bit more stringent. Okay, so let's go to the news. The news basically is just some sad stories out there where people got hurt, injured. Being the founder of the National Fire Escape Association, I do have times when I'm asked to be an expert witness on a lot of fire escape injuries or fatalities, and these run into the millions. So in all my years, I've exceeded over $150 million in payouts because of the multiple cases we've been involved in. And a lot of them settle out of court simply because the owner did not certify his fire escape. An injury occurred to one of the renters of the property, a vendor checking the elevator or on the roof or something like that. And sometimes in some cases, even firefighters that got hurt during the course of their activity on a fire escape because the fire escape was not certified. It injured them, not because it was job related, but because it was a neglect on the owner's side. And then a lot of these are settled out of court very quickly. All right, so let's scroll on to, so that pretty much covers the National Fire Escape Association. And if you want to get information about a class, a Zoom class, we're more than welcome to speak with you and talk to you about it. A lot of these classes are free. We teach a 6-hour continuing ed class. We verify whether or not you're going to be acceptable to the ICC. And then from there, we'll work it all out. But just give us a call at the website. You can go to nationalfireescapeassociation.org, or you can just call the number that's on the website to schedule and speak with our director. You can speak with Warren Kindler, and he'll basically be able to coordinate and contact with me so that we can make this happen. So let's go to a couple of websites. So the main thing about fire escape inspections is that you have two types of people that are going to be working on your fire escape. You have inspectors and you have repair guys, okay, vendors. So they both must be separate. They must be separately licensed. They must be separately insured. So let's talk about some of the issues with inspectors. But let's start off first with the Fire Escape Services Network.
Adjust your mic a little bit. So it's like more in your...
So right now, what we have here is on the network, basically this is where you would come in for certifications, load testing, repainting, and restoration. So our job is to work with vendors out there So some cases you have a vendor that can do the work, but he doesn't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? So we help by putting together a specification of exactly what needs to be done. It also involves 3 visits, no more than 5 on average, to, at the beginning of the project, outline everything, paint things, blue tape it, do whatever needs to be done, photograph it. There's a full video report, full photo report, full write-up, 1 inch thick, so a lot of this information. But a lot of times, the vendors that are out there, they're blue-collar guys, they just want to see, they want to be told what to do. So that's the main important thing. So the network is basically a place you'd go to find a group of architects, a group of engineers, a group of certified inspectors that have been certified through the National Firescape Association. You could also be a vendor who's certified through the National Firescape Association or not. Sometimes we've worked with vendors that are not part of the association, but they've agreed to follow the rules. And like most things, you want to make sure that they give you a 15 to 25 year warranty. On average, it's about a 15-year warranty, and that should get you through, on average, 3 inspection cycles every 5 years. So that's what the network is there for. And let me show you 2 of the members that belong to the network. Let's talk about engineers. So engineers, Firescape engineers tends to work primarily on the commercial aspect. We have Firescape inspectors, which is a division of Firescape engineers, and what they do is the residential side. So I'll show you that part also. So let's talk about scroll down a little bit. As you can see, there's schedule and inspection, certify or load test, project oversight, or design build, meaning we can build something brand new from scratch that was never there. In some cases, that does occur, or to replace an old one with a new one, you want to get it up to code and meet new current code today. So let's click on inspections and schedule an inspection so that we can just sort of walk you through what the steps are. So step 1, let's get it inspected. I've scheduled so that we can schedule an inspector out there. Step 2, the inspector must walk the job. The inspector, whether he's a structural engineer, whether he is a registered architect in your state, or whether he's a certified Firescape inspector through the National Firescape Association or approved by your city official. So we have some people that are inspecting out there and they haven't even called your city official or your fire inspector to see if they're going to accept their document, okay? So we guarantee acceptance by the city official or you don't pay us. And that's one of the reasons why we teach a class. So once the Firescape is inspected, you either pass or you fail. It's just an initial inspection. We need 30 minutes to an hour, and that's just going to talk to you about the fact that the Firescape had these issues. So we'll tell you what the problems are, not where they are and how many exactly exist and exactly how to fix it. That's a technical repair report, okay? So once you've decided that you want to have us do the technical repair report, then it goes into the next step, and that is step 3, where we basically babysit any vendor of your choosing. If you want our group to do it through the network, anybody that's part of our group must give you a 15-year warranty. And that means structurally, she will pass inspection for the next 15 years, or we'll fix it for free. That's our warranty, even if they're not part of the network. But if we watch them do it, we'll give you the structural warranty. If they are doing it all on their own, a lot of times they will not give you the structural warranty. Painting, you must stay on top of your painting. On average, every Firescape must be fully painted every 7 years, and that's what it says on a typical can of paint, for example, Rust-Oleum. So if you have a corrosion protection plan, which we offer, we know you're not going to watch the paint job, so we can stay on top of it, make sure that any scrapings that need to happen, any caulking that's come loose, we'll reseal it, and we guarantee that the Firescape, not only will it certify for 15 years, it'll certify structurally for 25 years. But I've seen, depending on what side of the building your Firescape is on and whether it has direct sunlight or wind, sometimes we can push the paint job to the 10th year, and in some rare cases to the 15th year before you have to fully paint it. But structurally, the Firescape doesn't have much to do anymore, because now you've taken The bolt, you've sealed it in 35 to 50 year paintable silicone. The chances of it getting any rust and there having a structural issue in the future is very low to nothing, okay? So let's scroll down a little bit. Here's some examples of a typical fire escape inspection. Because this is commercial, we're really dealing with 5 stories to 30 stories to 35, 40 stories. And so each one will be based on a different price. So to certify a fire escape, a lot of times the city official will request that it be signed and sealed by a structural engineer. So in some rare cases, even though you have a very well qualified architect or very well qualified certified inspector, they won't take it unless it's been either sealed or countersigned or peer reviewed by a structural engineer, and they want to see the seal on it, stamped on it. Okay, so again, we guarantee all paperwork. So it's very important that through the Fire Escape Engineers Group that there's guarantees. So that's why it's important that you get to know your inspector. So the other thing too, let's talk about the cost of a typical structural engineer, a typical architect, and a typical certified inspector. So most structural engineers will charge anywhere from $200 to $300 an hour. So when he leaves his site, goes to your site, he's already charging, the ticker is already charging. When he's at the site, when he leaves the site, when he gets back to his office, when he works at his office, and when he speaks with you on the phone, he's charging $200 to $300 an hour. Most architects are $100 to $200 an hour, and certified inspectors usually charge $75 to $150 an hour. So do your math. On average, they need 3 to 5 hours of typical time associated with residentials, 5 to 10 hours for typical commercial inspections, including drive time, work at the office, report making, whatever it may be. So be very, very careful. Insurance too is very important. So if you're an inspector, you must have workers' comp and liability to get on these things in case a tread falls or somebody gets hurt, and that has happened. I've had an inspector, architect, inspecting a fire escape in New York City, stepping on a tread. It dislodged the tread, fell to the ground 8 stories below on a very busy sidewalk, and it killed a pedestrian with this one tread that hit the pedestrian on the head, hit the ground and hurt somebody else walking in the opposite direction. So it killed one person, put the other person in the hospital, and that's a huge liability case that we're currently on. So this is what the typical fees are, and a lot of times you want to get a flat rate from somebody. That way, in case they're stuck in traffic, it's easy for them. So let's move on to the next one. No, I'm sorry, just go back to engineers, scroll down a little bit, and this is a typical fire escape evaluation. And what that is when you're looking at it, you want to see, this is a New York City inspection. So you want to see what it looks like. You want to be able to say, what are we looking for? What is it that's exactly the problem with my fire escape? So you want a photograph of what the problem is, you want a video telling you what the problem is, and then you want to report a checklist of some sort so that the building inspector knows that it was properly inspected. So this is a floor-by-floor walkthrough. So the inspections, you go up taking photographs, you come down video. So be aware that most architects and engineers will not do a video, and most certified inspectors will not do a video. We're one of the few, if not the only ones, that provide you with a video. And this is very important when you have a condo association, when you have owners that are across the country or across the world, and they want to know what's wrong with their building. This is what we do. And not only do we talk about the iron, we talk about the cement. If there's a problem with your wall, if you have some liabilities such as obstructions, potted plants on your floor, cement spalling on the wall, if you have barbecues underneath, trash, anything that could create a violation that would then cause somebody to get hurt who's going to sue you. Okay, next, scroll down a little bit more. Typical report. So what you want is you want to get a copy of their report. So whoever you're going to have do and charge you hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars for an inspection. He should give you a sample. We put our samples right on the website. So you can scroll and see exactly what you get for your dollars, pictures, proof, and whenever we explain what the problem is, we use drawings to help you out. And then we also talk about on the video. So let's, and then again, scroll down a little bit more. This is a 25-point questionnaire. This is 25 specific questions for every component on your fire escape, including some code requirements and some code violations, because you are pre-existing non-conforming, okay? All right, so let's, and we also post all the codes there too. So let's go to, if you want to self-inspect, this is a great little video. If you want to know what rust is, you just play it, and it'll tell you what to look for. Fire escapes must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. It's very important. Scroll down to the next one. We've been featured in a lot of news pieces. Our best one is probably Hank Philippi Ryan on Channel 7 News in Boston. And she did a 5-minute piece on how fire escapes have been ignored for over 50 years. And she was surprised in how bad the fire escape situation is in the Boston area. But it's not just Boston. It's Chicago, LA, San Francisco, Texas, you name it. They've all ignored fire escapes for literally almost 50 years. All right, let's go to the next. Scroll down a little bit more. People ask me all the time, what is a load test? Well, we recorded a load test, dragging 50-pound sandbags. A lot of people don't know, but when you load test, it's 100 pounds per square foot. So if I have a 5x5 platform, that's 25 square feet times 100 pounds, it's 2,500 pounds. So I have to bring sandbags and put them on that platform for anywhere from half an hour to 1 hour, take measurements before, during, and after. And this information is documented and recorded so that we can share. So if your fire escape holds that load, that means you're gonna pass. Even though we're load testing at the 2,500, very rare can you get 2,500 pounds of people on a 5x5 platform. So it's literally double the amount of weight it could take, okay? Frequently asked questions. This is down at the very bottom. This is a great thing. It talks about, how much things cost. Do I have lead paint? Let's talk a little bit about lead paint. The EPA says that since 1978, any fire escape that's built older than 1978 has lead-based paint. So you must follow EPA guidelines and rules. So that means you have to have a EPA renovator's license. You must collect all the chips accordingly, dispose of them in a construction dumpster. Your men have to have some protection, white suits, gloves. You must collect all the chips. You must protect you must close all the windows in the building so nothing goes inside and contaminates the inside. And should you violate this, it's a $37,500 fine to the EPA for each and every violation when it comes to lead paint. But we talk about, how much fire escape inspections cost. We cover that. We'll stay on the left side. Inspection dates, usually within 2 to 4 weeks. People get out there. For us, it's usually 3 to 5 days. How long does it take to submit a certification? Well, once you pass, certification could be as little as 3 days, no more than 5 days. If you pass, if you fail, obviously it could be longer depending if you're gonna shop it around, get a bunch of bids. Could be 3 to 6 weeks turnaround time on that. How much does a load test cost? On average, it's $1,000 to $3,000 per level, and a level is a platform plus a stair. It also means, is it in the back, is it in the front? Because sometimes we have to take all the sandbags and go down an alleyway to put everything in the back. So these are all costs that are going to be incurred to basically load test. But the load test is forgiven, or if you refurbish the fire escape in its entirety, because it's the NFPA states, the authority having jurisdiction shall accept by load test or other evidence of strength. So you want to avoid the load test, then refurbish your fire escape every 25 to 35 years. And what that means is now you just keep it painted and there is no load test, again, by the NFPA, okay? Let's talk about what kind of rust is there. Surface rust and internal rust. So whenever you have a connection with a bolt that goes inside like that, A lot of times the surface rust up here is cosmetic. That's a paint job. So that's where the code states must be structurally sound and must be kept painted. That's surface rust. If you don't paint it and you allow the rust to get in, you're going to get rust that's going to come into a connection. It's either going to V it this way, or separate it this way. But as soon as I get internal rust on any connection, 1/16, 1/8, 1/4 or more, that bolt is compromised, that bolt is no longer valid. And so even though it's still holding it, the connection is suspect. So now I got to separate the connection, clean it, prime it, and before I join it together, I put 35 to 50 year paintable silicone inside. Then I tighten the bolt. Now when I paint it, rust, should I skip a paint job, surface rust is going to try to get back internally, and it can't because you got silicone in there now. So that's the secret. You got to have silicone. 75, 100 years ago, there was no silicone. But today we have ways of protecting your connections a lot longer. And that's why we also offer the corrosion protection plan. And that corrosion protection plan is basically knowing that you're not going to scrape and paint it. We can visit your fire escape every year, keep it spot painted, keep it and deal with any minor issues that you might have. And that guarantees that you're going to not only pass for the next 15 years, which is our typical warranty structurally, but we've seen paint jobs extended to the 10th year, if not the 15th, but we've also seen structurally fire escapes last over 25 years. So that you have nothing but a maintenance issue, and keep the fire escape painted, she'll always pass, guaranteed. Okay. Do I have lead paint? Can fire escapes be welded? No, they can't be welded. So if you have a fire escape that's being built and it's an all welded fire escape, which makes up about 2% of all the fire escapes ever built in the US in its entirety, you weld them, then you send them out to be galvanized. Now the fire escape can be installed at your location because you've got all kinds of protectant. There's no way that water intrusion is going to happen and it's going to eat that connection. But most fire escapes were black metal steel. A lot of times in some of the connections there was no primer, much less paint in there, and there was no siliconing. So what happens is a lot of the fire escapes started to grow and expand because that's the first area. So a lot of guys who came in started welding these connections shut, but they never removed the internal rust. So if I get to a connection and it's got this weld that's either from a guy who doesn't know how to weld or from a certified welder who does ships, tanks, the fact that he left internal rust in that connection voids that connection is suspect. So you can also apply this to most bridges. Most bridges in the US have rivets. And why is that? When they need to move when they heat up. They need to expand. They need to contract when they cool down. And whenever there's wind or earthquakes, they got to move around a little bit. But as soon as you weld it shut, what happens is it becomes a fixed connection. And that fixed connection, when some certain things happen, including rust, it'll tear the bolt. So welds snap in 1 to 3 years after a repair. Bolts stretch for the 15 to 25 years, meaning if there's rust buildup inside that connection. So it's better to have a bolt than it is to have a weld. The next question, do you need licenses? Yeah. So if you're going to be an inspector of a fire escape, you're a certified engineer. A registered engineer, a registered architect, those are design professionals, or others acceptable to the building official, which means you have a certification from a certain state. There's no national certification, but currently the only 2 licenses for inspecting a fire escape is in Boston and in California. We currently have both licenses, but in most cases, residentially, they'll allow you to inspect it with somebody who's been professionally trained. So the National Fire Escape Association does train and certify fire escape inspectors. But that's what you need to inspect: certification, or you need registration. As far as a vendor, if you're going to be working on a job, you need to have an ornamental license. the ornamental license or a grade above that, construction license of some sort that involves metal, that means you're able to pull a permit. That means you have workers' comp and liability. And so the vendor who repairs cannot sign off on his own work, and the inspector that inspects cannot do the work. So you have to have two separate companies. Inspection companies are not required also to have errors and emissions insurance. We do have it at Fire Escape Engineers. Errors and emissions insurance it's one more layer of protection in case something happens, but you need workers' comp liability to pull permits, and in case anybody gets hurt. Whether you're inspecting the fire escape, you can get hurt. Whether you're repairing a fire escape, you can get hurt. Both ways, I've seen that happen where vendors fixing a fire escape have been hurt. That means your own guys could potentially give you some liability if there was no precautions taken, in that the fire escape was not properly inspected and they were warned to watch out for something. And what's that mean? That means you could be held liable that your men got hurt on a fire escape. So no fixing of windows on a fire escape that hasn't been certified, no certifying of what we call standpipes and such, anything to do with physically working on a wall. If you have to step on a fire escape, it better be a certified fire escape. And we talked about insurance, so required workers' comp and liability is required. Errors and emissions insurance is not required, but that's something we carry. Let's scroll down. We talked about the codes, so let's talk about very quickly over project oversight. At the very top there. So project oversight is pretty simple. It basically means that you're going to have somebody watch the job. So a couple of things can happen. We can inspect your fire escape, find that it failed, and tell you everything you need to know. If the work is minor, you can have the work done yourself as a homeowner, and then just provide us with photographs and proof. And in some cases, we may or may not need a re-inspection if the work is minor. One bolt, a little scrape and paint, and then we can issue the certificate. Number two is you've got some issues, but you have a very qualified vendor, and that vendor tells us what he's going to do. So then there's an initial inspection and a final inspection, usually paid by the vendor, saying that the fire escape is good. The project management, though, is when you want to put it out to bid. And so you want a full spec out. You want to meet at the site so we can walk through with any vendors. Usually you want to get 3 to 5 vendors to bid the job. And these vendors are going to allow us to be there at the beginning when they start, so we can tell them exactly what needs to be done. Even though they have a report, they have photos, and they have videos, they're blue-collar guys. They're not going to follow instructions all the time very well. So there's an initial inspection, there's a mid-visit, and we usually like to bring the owner with us that day. And then there's a final visit saying that the fire escape is correctly repaired, everything is right, we can issue the certificate. In some cases, at the final, if there's a problem, there's a problem with the vendor saying you're being too picky or whatever the situation may be, we don't care. We basically say the tiebreaker is not us, nor the vendor, nor the owner. We say, let's get a building inspector in here. We'll let him be the tiebreaker. And most vendors do not want building officials to show up, because we will then tell the building inspector usually that there's still rust in the connection and this guy just painted over it and he doesn't want to fix it. And we also help the owners properly pay. You never pay 50-50 in percentages to these vendors. You have a third down, a third in the middle, a third at the end, 5% walk through, and that sort of, those 4 payments help us control the vendor, who's also always chasing a carrot. Okay. So that's the walkthrough through one of our network partners, Fire Escape Engineers. Okay. So now let's scroll up and let's take a look at the residential side. Residential side, same thing. You can click on inspectors. Click there, yeah. And so when you click on inspectors, similar situation. You're gonna schedule here. You're gonna have frequently asked questions. Scroll down on this website. average pricing for residential style fire escapes as well as some commercial. So base prices. We talked about some videos and some reports. So examples, whoever you're going to use, make sure they give you an example or sample of their work. Videos of typically passed fire escapes. Okay. My fire escape is going to pass. What's it look like when it's going to pass? And it's usually there's no internal rust, and that the fire escape has been kept painted. Let's scroll down a little bit more. If you want to inspect it yourself, just to get an idea whether or not you're even going to pass, this is a great little video to watch. Scroll down, and we're news pieces out there again, coast to coast. We've done news stories, and some of them sad stories of people that got injured or hurt, and some of them preventative, like, hey, you should be looking at these things from now on. We got the load test video on this page also to help you. So whether you're dealing with, let's go back to National Fire Escape Association website, and just put it on page 1 on awareness, or the seminar page is also good, but this is the codes. So if you come to nationalfireescapeassociation.org, it'll give you all the information you're going to need to properly pick the person you're going to choose to inspect your fire escape. So it's not that we're the only ones that can inspect. I'm the founder of the National Fire Escape Association, but we teach this as a class, so we know what needs to be done. So if you have a good rapport with an architect or an engineer out there, we'll gladly tell them what needs to be done. There's sample code questions or 25-point questionnaires here that we obviously give for free for them to use as a guide. We can work with your vendor. We can work with your inspector, your engineer. There's a fee. We'll talk to them for free, but if they want us to help them through a process, that'll be most likely either fire escape engineers will help architects and engineers out in the field. But if it's a repair question or repair issues, we'll have, through the Fire Escape Services Network, we'll have Fire Escape Services deal with any of your vendors to make sure that the work is being done correctly. And as always, we're a full service company, so we can inspect, repair, a fire escape 15-year mandatory guarantee structurally on the fire escape, as well as the corrosion protection plan, which can extend the life of your structure from 15 years to 25 years in writing, okay, no matter who inspects it. So we're not going to certify it, only we can inspect. We'll allow anybody to inspect, and if the work is found to be deficient, we'll fix it for free. So thanks again for coming to our first podcast. We're going to be doing quite a few of these. In the future, we want to do these with building inspectors, architects, engineers. We'll have them come in, ask us questions. Wall restoration companies, will bring them in also to speak with them. And again, we'll basically let you schedule up any classes. So if you want to call, go to nationalfireescapeassociation.org, send us an email, give us a call, and we can, through myself, Cisco Meneses, or Warren Kindler, the director there, we can basically schedule you up for a Zoom training class into your future. Now that COVID is a major issue, we can schedule a lot of these classes online. And again, 2 to 6 hour continuing ed classes is the norm. So thank you very much. And once again, welcome to the first podcast of the National Fire Escape Association.org.